All right. And Scott, I put their GoFundMe for his charity in our comment section there if we wanted to post that. But let's get the Facebook groups up in here before then. All right. Give it a second to breathe. And I'll give it another second to breathe. Yeah, coffee sip. There we go. Definitely needed. Ooh, hot. All right. Welcome in, folks. Welcome in. It is Tuesday morning, the 3rd of 2023, January, of course, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, out there in Atlanta, Scott Kennedy. Scott, have you guys started to thaw out there yet? How are things in 2023?
Yeah, we're in the 60s and wet and rainy now, so wind and severe thunderstorm warning. It hits 8 degrees here. We're going to get some funky weather following that's for sure. But we're doing all right. Wanted to kind of kick off the show, Nick, just to get started with Damar Hamlin last night, collapsing on the field of the Bengals and Bills game and getting sent to the hospital. And the latest news I think we have on him, Nick, is that he was in stable but critical condition, was not breathing on his own yet, but his vitals were back to normal. So far, that's a good sign, Nick. It's incredibly scary. I'm glad the NFL canceled that game. It's bad enough when guys get their legs half torn off and you're like, okay, let's keep playing. Just stop. I'm glad they did the right thing there.
Yeah, I mean, how could you force those guys to go back out there and play? I mean, seeing the Bills players like around there, like sobbing on the field and like having to like walk away and just like uncontrollable emotional outbursts, which I mean, of course. So then making them to go back out there in a critical football game and just protect it. I mean, you first of all, not humane, but then second, you're putting those guys at major risk for further injury because they're not going to be in the right mind to play that game. So
yeah,
really happy
the NFL did the right thing.
Yeah.
The recent precedent we've seen for this, and hopefully we have a similar outcome. Christian Eriksen is a midfielder who was playing for Denmark in the Euros in international football. I got a text, I didn't see it happen, but I got a text. He's like, Christian Eriksen just collapsed on the field. His wife's, they're bringing her down from the stadium. It's really, really bad. He took some time off. And then he was back and he's playing with Manchester United right now. So he's back. And I don't care. It'd be great if Damar Hamlin ends up playing football ever again. I want him to wake up and have a, long, safe, happy, healthy life with his friends and family.
Got to get through this next day, and one step at a time, as cliche as it sounds. But yeah, my understanding is he's in the hospital there. He's in a medically induced coma, letting his body rest and recover. And we probably won't really know anything for a bit. Just from talking with some medical folks on this, it sounds like it's a 24, 48 hours before we really have an idea of what's going on with Hamlin. But his close friends and family have really expressed, I guess, gratitude for everybody reaching out, and also suggested that if you want to support Damar right now, this time, Damar Hamlin, go to his GoFundMe, the Chasing the M's Foundation Community Toy Drive. It was at like $20,000 yesterday, and now it's up at $3 million, $3.5 million. So pretty incredible. The people just, coming together and like, okay, how can we make positive change from this and show support? Well, find Damar Hamlin's GoFundMe, and that's a good way to do that. So yeah, really, really sad to see that happen. We got prayers coming in here. Dave Glassman. We also got Kevin Gray saying prayers for Hamlin. Morning, guys. Good to see you there. We got DeAndre Witherspoon. Good morning, BF. B, I think Harbaugh is the guy. Prayers go out for Hamlin. Pray for Damar. Yeah, definitely sad. Tyler coming in saying my doctor said they put him in a coma so he doesn't lose any more oxygen to his brain. If his brain was swelled, they would cut open. Yeah, just yep. It's crazy stuff right now with Hamlin, and that was probably a very memorable game. So very unfortunate, very scary, very sad, and just thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. I mean, there's not much else you can even say or do. This is a violent game. I also thought back to Scott and I were talking before the show. DJ Hayden, first round pick of the Raiders. I believe it was the 2016 draft, but don't quote me on that, from University of Houston. He also had a injury on the field in practice where he got tackled and it tore something in his chest, and the cavity surrounding his heart filled up with blood, and it was going to choke out his heart, and they rushed him to the hospital. He felt okay, but dizzy, weak, and they cut him open like, oh my gosh, if you'd have been any longer, you might not be here today. So and it was an innocuous hit, just like this one appeared on the field. So violent game, things happen, and again, just coming back around how fragile the human body and our very existence really even is. I mean,
Yep. I think everybody has the same thoughts waking up this morning. So on to matters of business for us. Like I said, not to make light of this, I think we all have the same feelings for Damar Hamlin right now. But we do also want to talk about the Denver Broncos. That's why we're here also, and a little bit of the coaching search that's going on, or is it has the coaching search over and now it's the coach recruitment that has begun? We've identified the guys we want. Now it's the recruitment part of it, Nick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the game of we're playing Bachelor right now. Who's going to end up with the rose? It's more the coaches doing that than the Broncos situation. But I think first off, before we even get into this, Scott, what positions are even going to be open this offseason? Now, right now we have obviously the Broncos one is going to be vacant. The Colts one sounds like it's going to be vacant. But after that, what positions out there are going to be available? I think we can
Let's
assume.
look at I sort by playoff standings, and I can look. The Bears seem like they'll be okay. They're on a new coach. The Rams could be open. Sean McVay could step away. The Cardinals could be open. He could step away. The Carolina Panthers might be open. The Saints theoretically could be a player for Sean Payton. After that, I think when you start moving up the line from there in the NFC, it looks okay. I think the Tampa job is probably safe for another year. Houston Texan, do you move on from Levy? Hey, we talked about this before. I like the way they finished the season.
Yeah.
They're playing hard. They're in a rebuild. Nobody expected anything from them, but I think they're playing tough for Lovie Smith down there. Broncos is open, obviously. I think the Colts is open. The Raiders could be open, if you ask me. And then I think Vrabel's probably pretty safe, even if they do collapse and go 7-10.
Yeah. Definitely possible. It sounds like the Raiders, due to finances, can't really move on from McDaniels just yet. It's the team that is pretty poor in cash right now. Relative
percentage of that team and come up with what, $100 million, $50 million for selling a percentage of my team.
Yeah, that's
unless I'm already leveraged against that, and I don't have anything left to sell without giving up control, then it becomes a problem. But
yeah,
if they wanted to find the money, you can find the money.
Probably could. Definitely. I think also something that about the Raiders' position is that if they were going to move on from Josh McDaniels, they maybe were not going to do Derek Carr like they did. That seemed like a coaching decision, which to me seemed like the power was more in McDaniels' hands than any of the players. So that points to that as well. But
he's got a fairly low dead cap number against $35 million. He's in trouble next year anyway.
Yeah. Yep. That's very true. And we'll see what happens with him. But I guess
so you don't have to, he doesn't get hurt and you guarantee that money. We've heard this several times now.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, Derek Carr. We've talked about it next year with Russell Wilson. Yep. So he's mothballed, so you don't have to pay him. So I can see that being a decision either direction, honestly. Yeah. I mean, it could be McDaniels, you're out. We don't care if we win these next 2 games. We're not paying this guy $35 million next year. That's a possibility also. I'm not saying that's what's going on. Just think of all the different angles there.
Yeah, 100%. And let's say hello to some more people trickling in here as the day goes along. We got Morning Sean saying, morning, fellas. It seems like the coaching search will be a narrow one. Definitely seems that way right now, but we will see how it goes. Brad D, good morning all from frigid and foggy Montana. We got sunny days coming in with the hearts and the coffee. Always important to have that coffee in there. We appreciate you. Michael Ronquillo coming in. Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. We got Greg Smith, top of the morning. Good to see you. We always appreciate you coming in. We got a couple more prayers. Rose Sims, Ryan Carnegie coming in praying for Hamlin, of course. We got our guy Ryan Slavic saying, good morning, Broncos country. Praying for Hamlin, obviously. I really do believe we're going to get Harbaugh. Least I hope we do. He is a culture setter big time. Definitely feeling that one for you. I'm hoping that's the case for the Broncos as well, but we will see how it plays out. We're going to get a lot more ideas as this week progresses. Benjamin Flores, howdy, man. F the Raiders. Bunch of bums. Love it. Mark Schrader, our guy. Good morning. Hope you're doing well, Mark. Appreciate you coming in. And Philip also saying good morning, guys. So coming back to asking you who what the head coaching vacancies are going to be. Typically in a year, you see 7 to 8, and I guess we could see some surprises as well. But this doesn't seem like the biggest versatile, varied group of head coaching vacancies that we've seen in a bit. And I know that's kind of the nature of a head coaching vacancy, means somebody failed there and it's maybe not the best position. But people say, no, who wants to go to Denver? Well, the Colts with Jim Irsay and a team that needs a complete rebuild out there. The Rams are in cap hell and also are paying an injured old quarterback.
He's
The
not
Cardinals.
that old.
Stafford's pretty old. I mean, he's Russell Wilson old.
Is he 30? I want to see him. Was that 05? He would have been 18, 17. I guess he would be old now. Yeah, I'm getting old.
Yeah, he's
I want to see him. I don't remember what year I went to see, but I went to see him play Javon Sneed in Texas. It was one of my first high school. I think that was my first high school Texas game, and that was a hell of a playoff game, by the way. And those boys put on a show. That was a good time.
I remember Javon Sneed, Ole Miss, right?
I think he's Florida first, and then I think I don't remember. That may have been Tebow.
Okay.
And then when Tebow committed, Jevin said, I'm going somewhere else. But I feel like Jevin ended up at Texas. Jevin bounced around a little bit. I thought he was a Florida commit, then at Texas, then at Ole Miss. I don't remember for sure, but you might be right. He finished off playing at Ole Miss.
I remember as a draft prospect, I remember Ole Miss. But I digress. So coming back around, the head coaching vacancies, really not that great. The one that I personally think is probably the best spot myself would be the Carolina Panthers. If they do become available, I think that's a pretty well-built roster across the board. They're going to have a top pick in this draft. Big thing with the Panthers is that they have like negative cap space entering next season, which is a big, definitely a limit for a coach coming in. If you want to change your scheme, it's pretty damn hard to do so if you don't have the resources at your disposal to, get a few key pieces in there. But I think that's a good one. But other than that, I mean, just again, combing over this, I don't think there are many great positions that are going to be available. And what could be the deciding factor for the Broncos' favor? The money they have. Now, on the other hand, the big negative, and it's something that some people will say doesn't matter, but if I was a head coach, it would matter to me. There's no division with a harder path to success than the AFC West right now. It's not just Mahomes. It's also Herbert. I mean, those guys, the rosters are going to change. Those guys are there. And that's,
you say that, but then the Chargers are meh. I mean, they're playing well now, but they're 500. The Raiders fell on their face. The Broncos fell on their face.
Yeah.
We say that in the preseason, but when you end up playing, and if you're cocky enough to believe in yourself, you're not going to Bobby Bowden this thing and say, I'm going to the ACC instead of the SEC because I know I can play. I can win the ACC 14 times in a row. It'll come down to more things than that. And one of the things I think I put this in writing in a discussion somewhere. I want to repeat it is like, I don't think this comes down to money just because for the reasons that we've talked about before, there's so much money available. I don't think you're going to go say $30 million. And again, if it takes $30 million to get a coach, you don't want him anyway because his heart's not in it.
Yeah.
You want a competitive offer, even if it's the highest paid coach in the league, that's fine, but not necessarily double it because then the coach is just there for the money. You don't necessarily want that. I said, but what's nice is being in a position where money isn't an issue.
Yeah.
Money is no object. Hey, that's kind of nice. I don't think it'll be money's not going to be the deciding factor unless you don't have enough. Unless I can't make a competitive offer. That's not a problem. Okay, money is no object. That's a pretty good situation to be in. I still don't think it's going to be the deciding factor for this. And frankly, you don't want it to be. You don't want it to be the deciding factor for this.
Now, talking about the money, though, there's, I guess, a little attachment to that. It's not just the money to the coach that could be the deciding factor. It's facilities. It's
and your assistant coaches. That's a big thing. What staff can I get? Absolutely. So money is no object.
Exactly. But as far as the money being if you're paying them too much, it's a negative because their heart's not in it. It could be the money you can do surround them. And we've heard Penner talk about it that, we're going to give this coach every opportunity and resource. You could have the number one analytics staff in football. You have the biggest scouting department. You could have the highest paid player, like health department, nutrition, technologies. I mean, anything that you possibly want outside of the structure of the salary cap, you can have. And that's if you're a big program builder, especially one with a college vision where it's, this all almost like president view of the football team.
Right.
I think that's a very big selling point.
I agree. And that to me, that's resources. I don't
Yes.
necessarily put that in with
The money.
with salary. When I say
Yes.
money, I mean like salary. What's the contract offer going to be?
Of course. 100%. We got talking about contract offer, $10. Clinton Watson coming in, kicking our contracts up $5 each, saying prayers up. There are reminders every day that our lives are so finite. It's the little things that can be the biggest impact. Go every day like it's your last. Love from Colorado Springs. Thank you so much, Clinton, for the support and the very kind message. And 100%, yeah, lives are finite. You know, we're just a blip. Not to get too philosophical on here, but you know, we're meat bags hurtling through space. And what matters is the relationships you make and, you know, leaving a positive impact as much as you can. Miguel coming in here saying, good morning, fellas. I feel like Jim Harbaugh is another Aaron Rodgers situation. All these ties and boom, crushed dreams. Miguel sounds like a guy who's been
Had
hurt
his
by
dreams
hopes.
crushed a few times.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly possible that the Broncos don't end up with a head coach that is palatable to either of us, Miguel, the fan base, etc. And there's always going to be people. Yeah, I've seen some like, I don't want Jim Harbaugh. I don't like his personality takes coming in here. I don't want Sean Payton. He's never won outside of having Drew Brees. I get the first round draft pick one more than I get the Drew Brees one. I also get the conversation of, is he the best fit for what Russell Wilson has done with considering what he's done with Drew Brees? But if he's a good enough coach, you can change what you do.
I think Sean Payton did more for Sean Payton with Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston than what he won with Drew Brees. You know, that he turned that into a plug and play system for a little while.
Yeah.
And that is what becomes enticing.
Yeah.
You know, he got Teddy Bridgewater should have kicked him back about $5 million. He got Teddy what was that? Was it for like 80? I mean, it was close. It was $20 million on 3 years, maybe. So it was 3 and 60 in that neighborhood. You know, this is a $5 to $7 million a year guy after his injury until he goes 4-0 with the Saints and the Panthers lose their minds.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was part of Sean Payton. You know, that was part of playing for the Saints and going 4-0 in that system.
Yep. You're right. And also another big part, and this is probably more for college coaches in NFL, but being able to bring in a good staff surrounding you. I mean, that's a big thing. Like, who are your connections? What's your lineage? Who do you know? And we saw that being a big issue for, obviously, for Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, the offensive staff he brought in was extremely inept. There's no doubt about it. And they were super young, inexperienced, and just not the best ties. If you bring in somebody like a Harbaugh or a Sean Payton, they're going to have connections, people that are going to want to coach with them, which matters a lot. Albert Knoppers, good morning, y'all. Good to see you, Albert. We appreciate you. Ozzy Wombat saying, hi, all. I know there is a Rooney rule, but what if the owners just went straight after Jim Harbaugh, made an offer that he accepts, and what is the punishment for that? I still think it should just be the best person. There's a process that's in place, and obviously there's complexities surrounding that rule, negatives, positives. It was put in place with good intention. Sometimes, though, it feels like you can it's a farce with some of the candidates you bring in, but it is the rule. The Broncos will go through the process and follow the rules there. They're not going to be looking just to give away money or draft picks for.
It's not that much different than some of the corporate BS you see where we have to have this job posted online for 5 days before we're allowed to hire anybody, even though we've already promoted a guy from within. Mm-hmm. So they'll go through the interview process with a few guys, and luckily for them, they have a guy on staff who is interested and is a viable candidate for head coaches that they can sit down and do an interview with, and it could end up being a Giro Evero. You never know. I mean, let's not discount that completely. That he's not a candidate for the Denver Broncos. He absolutely is, and he's going to get several interviews this year, and will bounce around. And you know, the Rooney Rule thing. That's to me that's just it's just a bonus that you can check that box too, I guess, because Evero's a worthy candidate. I'm not worried about the other stuff.
Yep. 100%.
But you know, that's entitled white guy talking. So I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but Evero is a legit candidate, full stop.
Yep. 100%. I actually really do enjoy the rule that the NFL put in recently about having minority coaches hired to other situations and getting draft picks in return for that, and empowering them, and all the things that the league is doing to empower more minority coaches. But that's the Rooney Rule is, you know, it's kind of an issue. I'm not an expert on this, but it's, you know, I don't like it when it's kind of a farce on some fronts. Good intentions, though. I do believe that. Lawrence Rivera, what's up, guys? Thank you all for the birthday wishes yesterday. 28 never felt so good. Happy birthday to you, Lawrence. We appreciate you so much coming in and hanging out with us on your birthday. And 28, I got a family going there. You're off to a good start. Quentin Caldwell, good morning, everyone. Good to see you, Quentin. We appreciate you. And getting back to it here, so the Broncos head coaching position vacancy obviously is one that the Broncos sound like they're going to go after a big name head coach. And we have odds, recently released odds from, I've tried to look for other places as well, but Odds Checker out here and just put out here, and they have it on DraftKings as well. Jim Harbaugh, Denver Broncos rumors. And I don't think Scott has seen this yet. So, Scott, who do you think the odds?
So my thought on this, a question was asked, what do you think the percentages are? And I would lay that at what is 25% in plus speak? Is that plus 400 now?
I have no idea.
Put down 100 to win 400. I think that's what it would be. So I'd say at about plus 400, or in this case, 4-1 odds. Because my thought on this is he might not leave Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. You gotta entice him to leave. There's reports that he could leave. That's fine. That could also be the right offer comes in. You know what else that means is I want to raise. That's his agent speaking and doing all that stuff. It's in his agent's best interest to drum up interest from everywhere, especially the big money Denver Broncos. If he wants to get his client a raise, who did just get an extension and has a 7 and change base salary at Michigan right now, which will pay him upwards of $10 million a year. So again, you don't want to come up with $25 million. So, and then you're going to compete with, right now there's an article on the Fan Nation Colts site about the Colts feel decent about their chances if they came up with the right offer. So you're dealing with that. So let's say if it's 50-50, even leaves Michigan at all, and then 50-50 with the Colts, if he does leaves, you're talking 25%. So we'll see. And you're also looking at the world's biggest pessimist, as we've talked about before.
Yeah. Who hurt you? No, but Ryan coming in saying, good morning, fellas in Broncos country. Good to see you. Jake asking, the Broncos get a 3rd round comp pick if Evero is hired as a head coach? I don't remember the exact stipulations of what comp picks you get. I think you would, but don't quote me on that. That's still a new enough rule that I don't know all the intricacies of how it works.
Yeah, and it depends on where they are and how long they've been with you for a while. I thought they had to be there more than a year, actually.
Okay, I'm honestly not sure.
There's some things to it. I don't know. There's a scale. The longer they've been with you, the more you've developed, the bigger the payoff in compensation for you for losing. It really should be like that with anybody.
Yeah.
If I bring a kid up from an internship and move him up, then I'm the one that trains him. There could be some compensation involved there.
Yeah.
That's how soccer works. I keep telling you all, forget the game. The general manager and team building aspects of international football are fascinating.
Yeah. I've done it in FIFA plenty of times. It's good times. Carlos Los O'Brien saying, good morning, fellas. Good to see you. Carlos. Tim Durr's in the house as well saying, morning, fellas. What's up, Broncos country? Not too much. And so now getting into the odds here. Number 1 odds, according to this book, for the Broncos, the head coaching spot, plus 400. Favorite, Sean Payton.
Oh, Sean Payton. Well, that's the one I said, okay, well, let me put 1,000 down on that one right now.
Yep, Sean Payton, number 1 odds, according to this odds book, plus 400. So what do you think about Sean Payton being number 1? It seems like from the more local Denver media sources that Jim Harbaugh is being pushed more than Sean Payton. But Adam Schefter pretty continuously has been talking about Sean Payton to the Broncos. People in the league thinking Sean Payton to the Broncos is certainly viable. And this movement of Sean Payton to Denver, I think, increased substantially once the Chargers made the playoffs. Everything was pushing Sean Payton, Justin Herbert, Los Angeles. Well, are they going to fire Brandon Staley after making the playoffs, after finishing hot? Maybe they should consider it if they like Sean Payton more. It's kind of the same conversation with quarterback. If you have somebody that you like more that's available, don't be afraid to go swing in for an improvement. But very unlikely, would be rather unprecedented too, I believe. But Sean Payton, number 1 for the Broncos at plus 400.
Does Sean Payton strike me as a guy where every dollar could matter? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. So forget everything I said about money doesn't matter. No, I'm just joking, kind of.
Yeah.
But he does strike me as a little bit more of the mercenary type to a certain extent. Again, I don't know. I get biased by the discussion in here about would Sean Payton want to do this or that or this and that. I know he's not coming here. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Denver is a great job. I've said from the beginning, people saying that Denver won't be able to get anybody worth a damn to come coach them it's baloney. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So if you think the top two candidates out there right now, yeah, Denver's going to be in on them. And frankly, as I've said before, their agents are going to link them with Denver because Denver's got the deepest pockets. Mm-hmm. If I tell the Arizona Cardinals you're competing with the Denver Broncos, then Arizona Cardinals are going to raise their offer because they know they have to compete with the Denver Broncos. So there's going to be links to the Denver, and that's what's going to make it hard. That's what's going to make it hard to read the tea leaves of what's going on. But my thought, Nick, hell, you talked me out of Sean Payton a long time ago.
Well, the thing about Sean Payton is most of my watching of Sean Payton, I will admit, I am much better at the defensive scheming and just how the league is playing defense right now versus the offense. Studied more of the defense stuff, listening to coaching clinics on defensive stuff versus the offensive stuff. So what my understanding of how Sean Payton has won in his career is a lot of quick game stuff, building a pretty damn good offensive line, and a quarterback who was incredible in terms of accuracy, processing in the short to intermediate areas of the field. That's not how I perceive Russell Wilson. Now, this Chiefs game, I think maybe was his best quick game of his entire season. And we saw a few good passes here in the short to intermediate areas. Still, some balls batted in the middle of the line of scrimmage, still, climbing the pocket and not staying square where he can throw the ball and run into pressure and sacks. But that's one thing about, Sean Payton that makes me a little bit concerned. But you saw a different kind of offense also with Jameis Winston without really weapons on that team. But who's their number one receiver? Marquez Callaway or something? I mean, they've had some issues there at wide receiver there for a couple years with Michael Thomas being in and out. So think with Sean Payton, maybe you would be able to work a different type of offense. How I envision Russell Wilson winning myself right now is much more of a Jim Harbaugh centric style offense. And on top of that, having to give up valuable compensation to get Payton in here, that's enough of a deal breaker for me. If they are both available, I'd be much more okay with both. But because of the compensation, the scheme fit, I lean more towards Harbaugh a bit.
2 firsts and 2 seconds for Gruden to Tampa. Even if you said half of that, I would balk.
Yep.
If it says, okay, it's going to be your first round draft pick, I'd be like, okay, I'll think maybe. Okay, I was starting to do the math on this. It was like, if you hit on every first round draft pick, every single one of them, you hit every single one of them, you couldn't afford to pay them all. By the time they, if they're all in the league to 10 to 12 years, by the time they hit that 5th-year deal and next contract, you couldn't afford all of them. You couldn't have 8 first-round draft picks making that kind of money, $20 million a year. You wouldn't have any money for the rest of your team. So giving up a first-round draft pick isn't as bad as it sounds, because everybody has the hope of what this first-round draft pick could be. We know what they typically are, and what you're getting with the coach and how much difference that makes. Everything you've just said about Rosberg, y'all, Broncos country, over the last 48 hours, this is one of the best coaches in the league, y'all. Ryan coming in, he says, after the Rodgers rumors in 2021, how do you trust Adam Schefter? Easy. I don't. I don't trust anybody, because you have to ask yourself, Ryan, what's in it for them? Okay. So I just went over this with, talking about the Denver Broncos are going to be linked to everybody. Aaron Rodgers, Denver Broncos. Aaron Rodgers, Denver Broncos. Aaron Rodgers, Denver Broncos. Aaron Rodgers, $150 million new contract.
Green Bay Packers.
There you go. Yeah. Jim Harbaugh just signed a contract extension with the Wolverines. Got an extra $3 million a year, a total compensation to $9 million base salary. There you go. So I don't trust anybody. You have to realize and ask yourself, what's in it for them? If I'm drumming up interest as Jim Harbaugh, that's my agent's job. That's their job to do that. They might have genuine interest in leaving. They might not. I know what they have genuine interest, though, in is getting paid more. They all have that. All of them have that in their background. And this is the time of year where they are stirring it up a little bit. I don't think we said good morning to Phil, if I'm correct, Nick. Phil comes in, he says, good morning and Happy New Year, Nick and Deacon Scott. Right back at you. Have a great day to you as well. Says, go Broncos, MHH for life. Thank you, Phil, for always being here for us. We're happy to be here for you, and we're glad you're here for us.
Yeah, appreciate you, Phil. Nice picture there. Got that helmet right behind me here. Shout out to the old man for getting that for me for Christmas. Richard Miles coming in saying, good morning, guys. Happy New Year to you and all the Bronco fans. Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. Hope you're doing well. We got Patrick saying time to hunker down and caffeinate. Should be an interesting offseason. Yeah, we're not even there yet, but it feels like it's the offseason. We're talking about the offseason now. Mike Woodward, morning, everyone. Good to see you, Mike. And you talk about giving up those the John Gruden trade, 2 firsts and 2 seconds.
And cash, but the cash isn't really an option here. Instead, we've talked about, Nick, instead of 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and $8 million, how about a second and $80 million? Does that tickle your fancy Saints?
Maybe. You tickle your what? No,
fancy. Tickle your fancy or your fanny.
Your Saints. Okay. Anyway, moving on. But that's a big concern for me. That kind of compensation. Also, there is no way in hell I am trading the 2024 first round pick. We've already seen the season when you gave up a future first, first for a quarterback, and now you are out of the quarterback.
The Saints, the 49ers, number 30.
Yes, but if they come and say we want your 2024 first round pick, shove off. Absolutely no interest here. Let's say the Broncos would have played kick the can on this season and brought back Teddy Bridgewater for one more year, or rolled with Drew Lock, and let's say you're probably picking about the same spot with those guys, maybe a little bit worse, but you're in quarterback conversation there without all the dead or without the massive contract hit, probably in a better long-term situation, unfortunately. So that's one where next you're talking about even a better quarterback class. You're probably not going to bottom out as much, but you possibly could. You want to be sitting there giving the Saints a top 5 pick in 2024? Hell no, especially because if that's the case, you're probably moving on from Wilson and you're probably looking to draft a quarterback. No way in heck. I'm that first 2024 first round pick off limits, completely off limits for me in this entire draft cycle.
Sean, I'll give you $10 million a year to sit out one more season until your contract goes up.
Yeah.
Yep. That'd be tampering, but you know what? Things happen.
Absolutely. So moving on with the book here, we both, I think I was more out on Sean Payton earlier, but now that, doing more research on him, the compensation stinks. But he's a very good coach. He's a very good offensive mind. I think he'd be actually pretty darn good in the era of defensive football that we're in, where there's a lot of too high shells, given how good he's been with scheming running backs touches and using the slot. And that's something that if teams are playing light boxes and playing smaller defenders, you can really take advantage of the space that's underneath if your quarterback can make the right reads and deliver the ball accurately. But I think that in today's NFL, he actually could probably be a positive for how schemes are playing on the other side of the ball.
I wasn't that high on Alvin Kamara. He went to Norcross High School in Georgia. Wasn't good enough at Alabama. I thought he was okay at Tennessee. I didn't think he was spectacular. And all of a sudden, he's a superstar in Sean Payton's offense. I mean, he's good back. Don't get me wrong. But, you don't typically get better in the NFL than you were in college. He did. Lawrence is talking about, and this is one I agree with Lawrence pretty much 100%. He says, hey, guys, my number one question is for the interim head coach because people think he's a viable option. Stop. No, he's not.
Yeah,
Jerry Rosburg will not be the head coach of this team next year. So let's get that one. But he says, but 2 different coaches playing the Chiefs and looking back at both games, the coaching looked the same and no different than Hackett in my eyes. What do you think? They were both competitive against the Chiefs, talking about, oh, that looks so much better. I was like, then the Chiefs? No, because they were both really close games at home and on the road. Those were pretty tight games. There wasn't that big of a difference overall, if you ask me, except that I think there were less players available for Rosburg this week. There are guys out there that are playing their first times in the NFL. God, wait, who is that guy? I watch these guys every day. Who's that? Yeah. And I think they were probably a little bit healthier. But no, I agree with you. Let's not. I talk all the time. I can't stand revisionist history. The Broncos raised their game against the Chiefs when Hackett was there. They played them tough. Raised their game against the Chiefs when Rosburg was there. Played them tough. Lost both times. So you can talk about the press conference and all this stuff, but the results on the field were very similar in the 2 games. Does that mean I wanted Hackett back? No, but Rosburg at his age, what he's been doing, I mean, he was retired. He's never been a head coach. I'm hiring a 68-year-old first-time head coach who was retired 2 weeks ago. No way. That's insane. I love what he's doing now. I think it's great. He's a really, really good option for an interim coach for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But no, he's not a viable option for full-time head coach. Not going to happen.
No, it won't happen. And if it does happen, get your tank commander helmets out. The Broncos are going for the bottom pick, or the top pick, I guess. We got Kayleon coming in saying, yo, good to see you. We got Colin asking last year's drafted quarterbacks who had any success, pick it. And also he says, funny, I don't remember any draft pundits hyping Purdy. Purdy had a lot of draft hype the year prior to coming out, and then he had a pretty poor senior year on an Iowa State team they had a good running back, but terrible offensive line and not a lot of weapons. And also he's 0 for 4 in his career against the Iowa Hawkeyes. I don't know if that matters at all, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Bring this up again.
But
Pickett was a reach in the first round.
And he's been okay for them.
This was a historically bad quarterback draft class.
Yeah.
But then you look at the 4 big ones, the 5 big ones from the year before. Lawrence is a hit.
Oh, man.
I'm not still completely sold on Justin Fields. He's. I said the other day, I know this is a hot take, but the narrative sways too quickly.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say Justin Fields is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, which is where I've seen him on some of these power indexes and stuff.
No way.
I like him a lot, and I still take him, but I wouldn't say he's unequivocally a hit. Zach Wilson looks awful. Incomplete on Trey Lance. Mac Jones is okay.
So there's a stat out there. I was listening to Mike Sando, a longtime NFL general manager, talk about he went back over the last 20 years and compiling data on the best defenses and special teams of quarterbacks who have had 20 plus starts. And
Tom Brady,
the number one quarterback in terms of average best defense and special teams on the other side of the ball out of that complete sample size, 96 quarterbacks, Mac Jones has had the best situation on the other side of the ball.
And number 2 is Tom Brady with the Patriots.
Yep, Tom Brady up there as well. Now, to be fair, the offensive infrastructure in New England has been not great, and the head coach, the offensive coordinator stuff there, they're going to probably bring in Bill O'Brien this offseason to be the offensive coordinator there. But Mac Jones has not had to do very much because of how good the defense and special teams is there. But 3 of the bottom 10 in that index so far. Justin Herbert, they've had horrible defense and special teams since he's been there for the most part. Trevor Lawrence.
I would say, how many starts is it? How many?
20 plus.
20 plus. Okay. And Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. Yeah, those are 3 of the bottom 10.
I mean, you get drafted that high, you're usually drafted by a bad team.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence would have walked into a really nice situation in San Francisco. Unfortunately, he was gotten. I say Trevor Lawrence. I don't mean Trevor Lawrence. I mean Trey Lance.
Yep.
In San Francisco. You remember me losing my mind over this Mac Jones talk for Offensive Player of the Year. I'm like, come on. I know there's a quarterback bias in this league, but give me a freaking break. He's been good for a rookie. Yeah, well, Jamar Chase has been good, period.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. So,
but I think back to
Mac Jones is a competent QB.
Yeah. Yep.
Trevor Lawrence is a future superstar.
And I think
Justin Fields is on the ascendancy.
22 years old, a lot of talent, and on a bad team. And I mean, he's about to break Lamar Jackson's rushing yard total for a quarterback. Got to work on the passing game.
3-win team. So what?
Yeah. I mean, it's still a nice feather in the cap for the tools, but
you don't want him breaking that record.
yeah, they're definitely true. So let's get back to the head coaching search here for the odds. Number 2 for the Broncos, according to Odds Checker, this came out I think about 18 hours ago now. The most recent one, plus 500 for Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is number 2 coming in there. He seems like the most, to me, of the favorites for the Broncos position. I am the most lean on him, and I feel like I haven't pressed you hard enough on this, Scott. I mean, you were with Dan Quinn for a number of years. Mm-hmm. He seems like a liked coach. I just don't find him to be super innovative. A lot of times with his defenses, it seems like, we have such a talent disparity against the teams that we're going against. I don't really think the scheme is very good. And he did a really good job with bringing in Kyle Shanahan, but that offensive infrastructure in Atlanta kind of crumpled in on itself after Kyle Shanahan left. And that's on him to bring in a better offensive coordinator.
I don't know, what were the dynamics of the hiring process. The beginning of the end was obviously, the Super Bowl, but then you replace Shanahan instead of all these wonderful internal options. You got Mike McDaniel, you got both Patricias on the staff to replace Shanahan internally. You bring in Steve Sarkisian.
Boo.
Man, that was embarrassing. And then you didn't fire him after he engineered the worst drop-off in a number one offense. I don't know how much of that was Dimitroff and how much of that was Quinn. What Quinn does really well, he motivates players very well, which is half the battle. Can he bring in the staff around him on the offensive side? You say the same thing. That's what's nice about if you have an offensive guy, you've already got, and if you can keep Ebro, that part's done. You don't know for sure. But Quinn, I think, probably would have learned. He may have been a little too player friendly early on. I would say he's still the same guy. Players love him. Probably a little more cynical and a little less willing to put up with BS, which is what you learn from one job to the next. So the experience he got in Atlanta, and again, why would we want that guy? Didn't he blow the Super Bowl? I can get into a list of reasons why, it's like saying, well, this whole season's on Russell Wilson. No, it's not. It's never binary. There's a whole list of things that happens, but he got Atlanta to the Super Bowl. I mean, we're talking about the 28th worst franchise in NFL history. We're not talking the Denver Broncos, y'all. All teams are not created equally. Getting Atlanta to the Super Bowl is a Herculean task.
Yeah.
So
if he could come with Kyle Shanahan, I'd be interested. But I'm not as into Dan Quinn. Personally, I'm not super impressed with his scheme. I think he's a very good players coach. But I don't know if he has the ability to come in and, lay down the law that this team, I believe, desperately needs. And talk about desperately needing, Kathy, we're going to miss you. We're going to need you to come back when you are done with this. But she says, hi, guys. Hi, Nick and Scott. Greetings from Germany. Guten Tag. This is the last Broncos for breakfast for me for a little bit. Got to have big surgery tomorrow morning my time. I hope all goes well, and I'll see you guys when Jim Harbaugh is the head coach. Well, Kathy, good luck to you.
Check back in. Find a way, hit us up on Twitter or something so we can check in on you.
100%.
Hope we can say hello.
Yeah, 100%.
Good luck. We'll be thinking about you.
Yep. Coach Chris coming in $20 saying, Happy New Year's, fellas. Was it just me or were the announcers in the Chiefs game hilarious? I got to be honest with you guys. A lot of times I feel, especially the last few games, the announcing has been so poor that I've been muting it and been, listening to another game while watching the Broncos or something like that. So nope, I did not listen to it, but they've been pretty poor. They kept pointing out categories the Broncos were dead last. One thing we aren't dead last in is our unwavering support for this broken team. It's pretty crazy. And this shows all the goodwill that the Broncos have in this city and the banked support due to the years of being the show in Denver, that this fan base is still here. I do think that, another 2 years, potentially you're getting to apathy. I know the Nuggets are incredible right now. I think the Avalanche are coming off the Stanley Cup. I don't watch Frozen Stickball, folks. Sorry. But still, Broncos are the number one in terms of rating and whatnot. And football's king too, so they got that going for them. But definitely the fan base is still here. A couple more bad seasons. I'm a little bit worried, but is what it is.
The fan base isn't going anywhere. They might slumber a little bit, but it would just take a little bit to wake everybody up from their hibernation. So it's a little bit of they're not going anywhere for sure. Mm-hmm. And Coach Chris, you bring this up because sometimes you can get an ownership group that will take that for granted. Think of the Chicago Cubs for 80 years. The bleacher creatures are out there happy, getting drunk and showing up and watching baseball. They don't really care if we win or lose. I don't see that with this group. I didn't see that previously with Bolin and the winning culture. I don't see that now with Walton Penner. They're competitive. They want to win. You don't fire a coach mid-season if you're not invested. And I mean emotionally, ego-wise and all that kind of stuff. We all know the money. The money, the money for the NFL, it's not an instant return, but it's a guaranteed return. That isn't important.
Yeah.
They're going to make their money, but you're not going to worry about having the Chicago Cubs out there where they don't care if they win or lose for 75 years. So that's very important, Chris, and I'm happy for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing about circling back to Quinn here, when it was the George Payton show in Denver, it seemed like this would have been a pretty close more of a sure bet. But now that Payton is, I wouldn't say on the outs, but losing power, does seem like there's a little bit of there's a dynamic developing there, or coming more to fruition between the ownership group and the general manager, that we will want to keep an eye on as this head coaching search progresses. But I don't think I'm less confident about George Payton being here to start next season than I was even a week ago. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the Dan Quinn thing with George Payton potentially, definitely on the hot seat, that connection loses a lot of shine, in my opinion. So we'll see with Dan Quinn, but he's number 2 right now, plus 500, plus 600 now. And this is pretty interesting. You guys might want to hit this odds book if you can bet on this one, if you got a feeling about Jim Harbaugh, because not Jim Harbaugh again yet. Coming in at plus 600.
Okay,
Jim
I was a little off then.
Yeah,
I said 25%, and that's more like 18%.
Yep. Yeah, we're
1
at
and 6.
It's a ways down here still, and we're not at Jim Harbaugh yet. Plus 500.
Like I said, there's some big obstacles for Jim Harbaugh. We can start talking about it. The tea leaves this, the tea leaves that. As far as I'm concerned, that's agent talk right now. And again, for those of you coming in late, the big money team is going to be linked with everybody.
Yep.
Broncos are the big money team right now. If I'm an agent and I'm talking Jim Harbaugh to the Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to tell Irsay, I got Greg Penner on the phone. They're willing to make me an offer.
Yeah.
I just got another 25% offer bump from the Colts. So it's good. This one's going to be harder than usual because the Broncos are going to be linked as legitimate players, and they will be, but to everybody, because it will help their clients get paid by whoever they end up, wherever they end up. I used to say all the time when I would recruit talent, it's like, hey, listen, let me get you a raise. Let me at least get you a raise. Let me interview and make you an offer. You can take it back to them. Let me at least get you a raise. You don't have to come here. That's okay. But let's listen. Let me get you a raise. That's a lot of what will be going on because there's only one spot you can get, and you're going to get linked with everybody, man.
Yep.
It's going to be like Colts and quarterbacks. That's you're going to be linked with everybody.
Yep. But we got Juan coming in. Say, good morning, gentlemen. If we do hire Jim, the only treat I see is for him is the Colts. Your thoughts? The only threat. Colts definitely up there. Colts have a big connection with him. I don't know. You have the connection of like Russell Wilson's contract and the weird dynamics there in the Broncos locker room. But in the Colts organization, you have Jim Irsay, who is erratic, I guess is the word that I'll use out there in Indy. Now he's going to go out there and he cares a lot about that team, but he seems to be a little bit, I don't want to use the word unhinged. I don't know what the word is I want to use for this, but
I was thinking scatterbrained.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the words.
But he does seem to inspire some loyalty in some of his former players that he has taken care of. And if the relationship there is good with Harbaugh, then that could be a positive.
Yep. 100%.
Could be. And if it all goes bust, you're going to pay me off $50 million and I'll get another job.
Yep, that's not a bad way. Somebody do that for me. Dylan Von Ark's coming in saying, morning, y'all. Good to see you, Dylan. So running through some of these now because we're running late. Now we want to get to Jim Harbaugh's odds. Plus 600, Jim Caldwell, the third highest odds for the Broncos' next head coach. Next up is plus 700, Shane Steichen, the Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator. Then you have plus 750, D'Amico Ryans. Plus 900, Eric Bieniemy. Plus 900, Frank Reich. Plus 1,000, Kellen Moore. Plus 1,200, Jim Harbaugh. So those are the odds right now. Jim Harbaugh is dead last on that. Plus 12.
I thought who was 6? I thought you said Harbaugh was 600.
1, 2. No, plus 600 is Jim Caldwell.
There were 2 at 600. You said Harbaugh.
I said it's not Harbaugh. Still not
okay.
Harbaugh.
All right. Well, then it was way off on Harbaugh. It was 1 in 12 is like 8%.
They write on this article that it's they used an exact percentage here. I think they used 12%. For 17%. Jim Harbaugh, odds makers give Broncos 17% chance of landing Michigan head coach. So maybe my odds are off on that. I'm really bad with the plus or whatever. I'd rather see it as a ratio.
Plus 1,200 means you bet 100, you'd win $1,200. So that's like 12-1 odds.
Okay, well, there you go. If you guys have any thoughts on Jim Harbaugh being the head coach right now, he's very low rated according to Odds Checker, which is the most recent odds. And there's been a lot of news recently that Jim Harbaugh is interested in making the jump to the NFL. Mm-hmm. Bruce Feldman has put it out there recently. A lot of Michigan insiders are being like, guys, last year, but we had said, don't worry about it as much. Or like, if he does get a good offer, he might go. But this year, the winds have changed. It does sound like he's going to try to make that jump to the NFL. It seems like it's way more likely to happen this year. And some of the contract incentives that he had in place aren't super likely to be hit. Some of them are like land the number 1 recruiting class in the country. Michigan's a great recruiting team. They're not going to have the number 1 recruiting class in the country due to the academics and the geography of the institution. It's just, I mean, you're not going to out recruit some of those teams in the South. Some of them, like winning the national championship, huge bonus. This is probably about as good as a path as they're going to have. No Alabama in the playoffs. This Georgia team is good, but they're not littered with first-round talent like they were last year. You played TCU and lost. You beat Ohio State twice. Ohio State will reload. So it does seem like this is about as good of a chance as you'll see Harbaugh jump as we've seen in a bit. So I think it's going to happen. Will it be Denver, though?
Now, real quick on the recruiting thing, I've said the 3 teams with the biggest natural recruiting advantages in the United States are Georgia, Ohio State, and LSU. And I might throw Texas in there as a fourth. Michigan isn't one of those 3, but they are really good. And the thing is they're a big enough state school. They're close enough to the northwest part of Ohio that they can get that Cleveland area, north part. That's almost like, but you're still recruiting Ohio kids anyway.
They do great in Chicago as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's because there isn't you're going against Notre Dame for those type of guys too. But again, the ones I mentioned all have an in-state talent base with very little in-state competition.
Yep. Those guys need to start going to Iowa. I think that's what they should do. But
unfortunately, Iowa only produces about 15 D1 kids a year.
Yeah, and then they pick to go to Alabama or some crap. I'm not bitter. Who said I was bitter? But any thoughts on this, Scott? We're in the 50-minute mark now. I got to start wrapping up. Jim Harbaugh that late. Did any of those other names stick out to you?
I'd throw $10 on Harbaugh and win $120 out of that.
Yeah, I mean that seems pretty good. Any of these names here that
I said 25%. Damn, that's like 8.
Yeah.
Jim Caldwell, Frank. We've heard Frank Reich a lot, but again, is that just us talking, or is there some legitimacy there? Frank Reich is so calm. He's so easygoing, so laid back. I'm just not sure if he's the guy to come in and say, "I'm in charge."
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really enjoyed listening to him and watching him coach. I think he's very good. I'm just not sure if that's the culture change again. And it does. I don't think it needs a total culture change. You need to find a happy medium between Nathaniel Hackett and Vic Fangio, and not just keep going back and forth to the inmates are running the asylum and nobody wants to play for this a-hole. So, is Caldwell that guy? Is Reich that guy? I think Dan Quinn slides in nicely between those guys, but then there's the recruitment of, what can your staff look like? That's going to be incredibly important with all of them. It's going to be important with all these guys, and who's got the most ties to bring in the best staff. For me, Harbaugh would still be the best option. And I don't think it's 12-1. I don't think it's plus 1,200. I've said 25%, which probably had a lot of Broncos fans go, "Oh, it's better than that." Maybe it is. Better than us right now is Coach Chris coming in again. But he says the good thing I see is the lack of coaching vacancies this year. I'm sure there will be some dark horses coming into the mix, but I only see 3 or 4 coaching changes in the NFL. Love the show. Keep it going. Thank you. And you're a big help for that, Chris. So, again, one of those dark horses, Arizona could open. LA Rams could open. Like I said, I think Tennessee is probably safe. They'd be pretty stupid. I think Houston could open up too at, depending on what they do against the Colts. The Colts are open. The Broncos are open. The Raiders could open up. Everything else I think is okay. As I've said from the last 10 years, the day the Steelers think they want to get rid of Mike Tomlin on their terms, he can come coach for me wherever I am at the time. And they're 8-8. Did you expect them to be playing for a 9-8 record this year?
No, that's not a very talented.
You know who did? Team. And you know why?
Mike
Tomlin.
Yeah.
Love him. Love him. Man crush love.
Is he the best coach in the NFL? Behind Belichick?
I don't know that I'd put him in the argument.
Yeah.
He'd be right on the top of the list for me. And again, I'm not going to argue with you if you were to say it's Bill Belichick. Yeah. Okay. That's good. I might say it's Bill Belichick, but he's as good as they come. He's fantastic coach.
Yep. I don't disagree with you. So running through the odds one more time. Favorite right now, plus 400, Sean Payton. Plus 500, Dan Quinn. Plus 600, Jim Caldwell. plus 700 Shane Steichen, plus 750 D'Amico Ryans, plus
I like the
900 Eric.
Steichen one. We kind of glossed over that one.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he's the right fit for the Broncos right now.
Yeah.
Next year, he might be.
Yeah.
If he were to say, pull a Dan Quinn and say, I'm going to pull back, I'm going to stay with this team again, we got a chance to make a run. And the Eagles do. The Eagles are on the ascendancy. I'm going to stay here one more year.
Yep.
And you move on from Russell Wilson. You got a top 3 pick. If that's how it goes, he might be the candidate next year. But then what do you do for a year? You're not going to have an interim coach for a year. You got to have somebody for the Broncos this year. That's the problem.
And that's one reason we talked so much about keeping Nathaniel Hackett if at all possible, because it's really hard to bring in a lame duck coach and then you're going to be moving quarterback, general manager, head coach, and it's all juggling at different times rather than tear the page off at one time. But
I talked myself into this one though. If your plan is to move on, either you get something out of Russell Wilson, great. If you don't, we're ready to move on. Shane, we're okay with that. You're going to have options. And you see the way people are gushing about Jerry Rossberg and a loss to the Chiefs. That's where expectations are right now. You're going to have a longer leash as long as you don't completely look like a fool.
Yeah, which won't be hard to do. D'Amico Ryans, 750. Eric Bieniemy, plus 900. That's one. Don't take that one. I would be shocked if it's Eric Bieniemy. Plus 900, Frank Reich. Plus 1,000, Kellen Moore. And plus 1,200, Jim Harbaugh. So any names...
Ryans isn't on that list at all.
He is. No, I said plus 750, D'Amico Ryans.
Okay. See, I need to turn you up some, but then you get an echo. Maybe I need some headphones.
Maybe I should have pulled it up and put it on the screen. But
that
then
would
you wouldn't see our beautiful faces. I like to have all the power. But any names on that out of that list that are missing? Obviously, you mentioned D'Amico Ryans there. I'll throw out 2 candidates that weren't there that I think you should keep an eye out for still. I've mentioned on here a few times. Broncos interviewed him last year and were impressed by him, and I think he's an ascending head coach. Jared Mayo. I know a lot of people are like, oh no, New England assistants. But Jared Mayo has been considered an intelligent person. He was like killer in the business world too before Bill Belichick coaxed him to come back and coach in the NFL. He was really ascending in finance, I think it was. And like, no, we really want you to come in here and coach the defense. So he's really intelligent. The New England Patriots defense is number 1 in football. According to EPA, Denver Broncos have plummeted in terms of their advanced analytics on defense. Jared Mayo is one. And then the other one, potential dark horse here, not mentioned, David Shaw. Stanford had a major recruiting disadvantage, especially in the NIL era, but also geographically. I mean, they were just not bringing in guys anymore. Pac-12 kind of crumbling around them a little bit too, somewhat. But David Shaw, could see him coming in. The Stanford connections ring true for the Broncos with Harbaugh. They ring true with David Shaw as well. So he's one that I believe in. And Gerard Mayo. I think I must say it. Gerard Mayo. Yeah. Former, I think he played at Tennessee. Top 10
sounds
pick.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have called him probably Jared too. So thank you, Jeremy. And how many, we talk about the Bill Belichick coaching tree. How many of those guys were defense? I don't remember any of them.
Matt Patricia.
Okay. Well, I thought Patricia was an offensive guy.
I'm
thinking of the LaFleurs. When I mentioned Dan Quinn's staff in Atlanta earlier, I think I said Patricia. I meant the LaFleurs. Mm-hmm. Patricia's doing a good job.
He's okay. So Patricia's really weird because he was the defensive coordinator for a number of years in the Patriots. They hired him to Detroit, and now Patricia's the unofficial offensive coordinator for the Patriots. So they flipped his side, and I think it has something to do with the language.
Correct. I'm sorry. Matt Patricia was a disaster in Detroit. Who do they have now that's so fiery that the people love?
Belichick's son. I think it's
at Detroit.
Oh, at Detroit. Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell. Okay, sorry. I'm getting all confused. I know the NFL a lot better than I did a year ago. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm Patricia. The LaFleurs were who I was thinking of, was on Quinn's staff with Shanahan and Mike McDaniels. That's 4 pretty good offensive minds.
Yeah.
Matt Patricia was a disaster.
Yep.
That was, God, who was the Bears coach a year ago though that they hated?
Jim Nagy.
Okay, they didn't like him at all. I promise you that.
He was
and then Dan Campbell, they love him in Detroit.
Yep.
And Patricia and Mac Jones are at each other's throats.
Yep.
So we're going full circle. This is not an episode for big. Was it Big Earn that hates the other talk?
No idea. That's one that
hates the non-Broncos talk.
Oh yes, Ernest May. Yep. Sorry, Ernest. Hopefully you won't get too mad at us. And one more name I did want to throw out here. I saw somebody mention it. in here. Here we go. Rob Bucksbaum. If Carolina moves on from Steve Wilks, 10,000% yes. He just hearing people talk about his presence, his demeanor, his leadership. He was shafted in the Arizona Cardinals after one bad year, saddled with the single worst quarterback season we've seen in the last decade in Josh Rosen's rookie year, and then fired and moved on. He's turned that team that I believe started 1-4 underneath Rule out there in Carolina, and now they are 5-6 and winning football games with Sam Darnold at quarterback. I mean, I do like a lot of the roster there, but I think Wilkes has been a good job, and talk about a stabilizing presence. If Carolina moves on from him, he's 100% getting an interview for me, and he should be one that I would be, since he's not even on this list, maybe toss $10 on that for the Broncos.
Like what James has to stuff. I don't know that I'm ready. I think I looked up David Shaw's wiki page yesterday. I think he has some experience in the NFL. I don't know that I'd want him going from college to the NFL as a head coach, but maybe if he got a year as an offense, as a coach under someone, an experienced coach in the NFL, I think that might be a good thing to go. And if you keep Evero, and then again, Rosberg as a special teams coach / consultant, I think is going to be entirely up to him. If you want to keep him, does he want the daily grind of being a coach, or does he just want to be a consultant and come in and help? It's pretty obvious to me he loves still being around the game. But you go from interim head coach and having a role where you've got as a consultant where you got your fingers in a little bit of everything, and then go to special teams coach, that might not be as fun for him. So I think it'll be entirely up to him.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. A few more names coming in here. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions. Keep an eye on him. And then somebody mentioned, there was another name in here. Callahan, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, who might also be another descendant on the Shanahan tree. I don't remember.
McVay. Or does McVay come from Shanahan and I'm just one branch down?
McVay comes from Mike Shanahan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yep. Not Kyle, but yeah, that Mike Shanahan coaching tree is insane. Really good. Well, guys, we got to get on out of here. We're a bit at an hour. I'm going to post again in the chat here, Damar Hamlin's GoFundMe. He has a toy drive that he was doing, and it's exploded, and his parents have asked if anybody wants to support in any way. This is probably the way to do it. So I will post that right now. There you go on our pages. If you click that, it can go to that link, and you can support there if you want. And obviously our heart goes out to Hamlin, and what happened yesterday was, hopefully we'll never see it again. But it's scary, horrifying. Really glad the game didn't proceed, and we'll be following that. Obviously everybody will be following that in this football world, the sports world. I mean, humanity will be following that going forward and pulling for the best possible outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. We all, like I said at the beginning, we could dedicate an entire show to Damar. I think we all feel the same way moving forward with this one. And hopefully another day we'll bring some even better news. Made it through the night. Let's get through another night, keep getting stronger. He's, world-class athlete, prime of his life. So hopefully that body will heal the way it should.
Yep. I'm thinking about those doctors as well, getting it done. And also shout out to T. Higgins. Hopefully he's doing well. He had the catch and was tackled by Damar, and being directly associated with that happening is, scary and worried, thinking about him and his mental health as well. I mean, he's playing a game, didn't do anything egregious at all. It looked like a pretty, mundane tackle, and just wrong spot, and showing the fragility of the human body.
You see that in baseball. There's like they wear the young kids in baseball wear a chest protector. It's just kind of a pad, because there's like a spot where if it hits at the right time, an electrical pulse gets sent, and it's it can send you into cardiac arrest. I mean, it's scary. And like I said, the precedent for this that I've seen recently was Christian Eriksen from Denmark, who collapsed on the field, and it looked just as bad.
Yep.
And he's made a full recovery. So here's hoping that Damar Hamlin has the same.
100%. Make sure you guys are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join our Facebook community at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says underneath there, make sure you subscribe, like, and share to our show over on YouTube. Click that bell notification or the bell icon so that way you know when we go live. And, join our community there to hit us up on the chat afterwards. If you have any questions for us, like I said, hit us up on Twitter. And you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. I will see you guys again tonight with Carl on Building the Broncos. But until then, make sure you guys are choosing kindness and compassion. Thoughts with Damar Hamlin and his family. Go Broncos.